thank you very much for coming. And as we know, the IATA is in the center of the aviation industry. So my first question is about what, in your opinion, are the main challenges for the aviation?
Thanks very much, and it's really a pleasure to be in Moscow, especially at this particular event. As I said a little bit in my opening address, I think the main challenges we face today is everything around the geopolitical forces that influence this industry. Specifically things like fluctuation in oil prices have a significant impact, trade wars clearly will have an impact, sustainability on environment. I know in parts of Europe are extremely volatile at the moment. So I think these are some of the major areas. If I talk about probably my speciality area when it comes to people, I think we are going to face challenges. If we just look at the previous presentation on the growth of this industry nearly doubling by 2035, we see significant shortages of skills in very specific areas. And I think it's going to be critical as an industry and not necessarily as individuals in the industry to address this.
That's interesting, because you know that the industry becomes bigger and bigger, and air transportation becomes, to some extent, more and more popular. Of course, there are some concerns about the environment, but I think it's just temporary because the solution will be found. And so the flights become more and more popular, but the industry feels so shortage of qualified people.
That's correct. And it's a natural growth when you have an industry nearly doubling by 2035 in estimation today. The obvious ones are pilots, for instance, ground handling crew, so ground crew that actually need to service these. If you then bring into consideration things which was mentioned in the previous presentation on infrastructure, how is infrastructure going to cope with this increase in demand? So we're talking more people, more flights, and the infrastructure to cope with this. Airports, immigration services, etc. are going to be really under pressure to deliver in these markets, particularly from the people side. I believe we're going to see, well, everybody talks about robotics, everybody talks about innovation.
Talk about robotization,
exactly.
Digitalization.
Exactly. Is this, and the obvious question is, people ask, well, are we going to lose our jobs? Well, I believe we won't. And if we look at the trend today, I believe in two things. Firstly, we're going to have to actually be able to set up and develop these robotics. It's going to mean more jobs to get to that point. The focus, I believe, is going to be on what I would call repetitive tasks, where you could possibly use artificial intelligence or robotics to address these repetitive tasks. What that, I believe, will do is free up some of our people skills and our people to be able to address more on the thinking part and deliberating, which I believe is going to take us an enormous amount of time to get this program into artificial intelligence. So I think there's definitely a role to play for the human being and for the guy in his job today. However, I believe what's going to be critical is a continuous path of learning. So we can't say the person today with the skills today is going to be the person tomorrow with the same skills. I think we need to be clear that these skills will transform over time. And I believe the industry as a whole needs to take that into account, because the differentiator today between airlines is, if you look at infrastructure, it's the same airports they use, basically the same planes, the same seats. The only differentiator is the service that they can provide to the end customer. And therefore, I believe we should be using our people to address that service, take care of let's call it the repetitive stuff with artificial intelligence, and spend time on actually providing a service to the customer, who's going to then decide who does he fly. Does he fly in this airline or the next one? And it's how you treat it that's going to be determined. Surely price, of course, But how you then get treated is going to determine which airline you're going to fly.
I think there's the idea of the human capital, thinking about humans, not about the function person who makes some repetitive functions and just maybe changed by some automation, some robotics, but thinking. I think it's what can we make better.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think the point is, I think we need to focus our people on thinking differently, because the world, as we know, continues to change. Mm-hmm. How do we get our people to continuously think about this change? How do we adapt ourselves to that change and make sure we stay up to date? And it's an interesting thing, if we look at the generations, we've got multi-generations in the workforce today. If I take people, I grew up in an era with telephones with, where you have to actually use your finger to dial the number. Today, everything is on video, Skype, you are contactable the whole time. The world has changed. We need to, as organizations, I believe, make sure that we keep our human resource up to date with these changes and not lose the skills of the past, but adapt them and then use them in the future, because they are really good skills, and not lose those.
Great. And what's your opinion about this event?
I think this is a critical event. I believe events like these truly get people to talk about the challenges. Because you're right, and I like the opening address. This is not a theoretical event. These are things that's affecting the industry, and I mean the total aviation industry every day. And these events are the opportunity for people to actually get together and discuss these, I say, challenges, issues that they face, but then lobby as to what are we going to do about this. Mm-hmm. And I think when you've got then a group of people from the industry together like this, is the time to actually come up with some real concrete actions as to what is going to happen next. And in some cases it's lobbying governments, it's lobbying regulation in various parts, and ensuring that we actually end up with one voice and not have a fragmented approach to addressing the issues.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.